Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Ruttama Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 9, Brahma's Prayers for Creative Energy. So, this chapter has 5 sections, and currently we are reading the section Lord's Supreme Form, text 1 to 5. So, we come to text 5, very beautiful verse. We are at text 5, Prabhuji, right?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, so we will recite this verse, extremely beautiful verse. ये तु त्वदीयचरणाम्बुजकोशगन्धम्
ये तु त्वदीयचरणाम्बुजकोशगन्धम्
जिघ्रन्ति कर्णविवरैः श्रुतिवातनीतम्
जिघ्रन्ति श्रुतिवातनीतम्
भक्त्या गृहीतचरणा परया च तेषाम् मनीषिनाथ हृदयाम्बुरुराहत् स्वपुंसाम् Translation.
O my Lord, persons who smell the aroma of your lotus feet, carried by the air of Vedic sound through the holes of the ears, accept your devotional service. For them, you are never separated from the lotus of their hearts. Purport: for the pure devotee of the Lord, there is nothing beyond the lotus feet of the Lord. And the Lord knows that such devotees do not wish anything more than that. The word tu specifically establishes this fact. The Lord also does not wish to be separated from the lotus hearts of those pure devotees. That is the transcendental relationship between the pure devotees and the personality of Godhead. Because the Lord does not wish to separate himself from the hearts of such pure devotees, it is understood that they are specifically dearer than the impersonalists. The relationship of pure devotees with the Lord develops because of devotional service to the Lord on the authentic basis of Vedic authority. Such pure devotees are not mundane sentimentalists, but are factually realists because their activities are supported by Vedic authorities who have given oral reception to the facts mentioned in the Vedic literatures. The word paraya is very significant. Parabhakti, or spontaneous love of God, is the basis of an intimate relationship with the Lord. The highest stage of relationship with the Lord can be attained simply by hearing about Him, His name, form, quality, etc., from authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, recited by pure, unalloyed devotees of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
So this verse, Brahmaji says, Ye tu tvadiya charana ambuja kosha gandham. Charana, lotus feet. Ambuja, charanambuja, lotus feet. Kosha gandham. There is a fragrance of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the devotees, they smell it Jigranti. How they smell? They smell the aroma of the Lord's lotus feet by karana vivaraihi. Generally, we will smell through the nose, but the devotees will smell aroma of the Lord's lotus feet by through karana vivarai shruti vatanitam, by the flow of the scriptural wind. Very beautiful analogy. Here, Brahmaji says, "My dear Lord, when the scriptures speak shruti vatanitam, generally what happens is aroma is carried by the wind and we smell it through the nose. So here the aroma, which aroma? Tvadiya charanambuja koshagandham. The aroma of the lotus feet of the Lord is carried by the wind of Shruti Vatanitam, scriptural wind. And that is smelled by the devotees through their Jigranti Karana Vivarai. Bhaktya Gruhita Charana Parayacha Tesham. And thus devotees accept your devotional service and they are never separated from you in their hearts. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the pure devotees, they desire only the lotus feet of the Lord. And in exchange of that, the Lord also does not wish anything other than that pure devotees. Later it will come, when Lord says this, Sadhavo Hridayam Mayam, Sadhunam Hridayam Tvayam, Madanyattena Janati, Naham Te Bhyumanakapi. Neither my devotees know anything but me, O Durvasmuni, neither I know anything but my devotees. And later, Lord, further he gives the analogy. He says, just like the husband is completely sold out to the chaste wife, similarly, I am completely sold out to my chaste, unalloyed devotees. Aswatantra ivadvija. He says that I have no swatantrata. Further, Srila Prabhupada says that's why devotees are very dear than the impersonalist. And that's why the Lord is known as Bhakta Vatsala. So, this is the glory of devotional service. And this devotional service should be performed on the basis of Vedic authority. It is not some mundane, sentimental activity like we will see many Sahajis in Vrindavan. No, the devotional service has to be a Parabhakti, and this Parabhakti is the basis of intimate relationship with the Supreme Lord. And how this devotional service can be attained? This devotional service can be attained by Shruti, by hearing. Only condition is that one should hear from the bona fide source like Gita and Bhagavat. Gita Bhagavata Kariti Shravana, Akhanda Chintana Vithobanche. Tukaram Maharaj says this. Gita and Bhagavat. And the reciter should be a pure Vaishnava without any motive within himself. So, by such hearing, one can arouse devotional service, and by devotional service, one can become very dear to the Supreme Lord. And this devotional and one can actually smell the fragrance of Lord's lotus feet, which is carried through the Shruti Vatanitam. Next, one of the later verses we are going to see the Lord's, the one can see the Supreme Lord through one's eyes also. So that is next text 11. We will see that. Very beautiful prayers by Brahmaji. Text 6. तावद्भयं द्रविणदेहसुहृन्निमित्तं शोकस्पृहा परिभवो विपुलश्च लोभ तावत् ममेति असदवग्रह आर्तिमूलम् यावन्न तेऽङ्घ्रिवभयं प्रवृणीतलोकः. Translation.
O my Lord, the people of the world are embarrassed by all material anxieties. They are always afraid. They always try to protect wealth, body, and friends. They are filled with lamentation and unlawful desires and paraphernalia. And they are avariciously base their undertakings on the perishable conception of my and mine. As long as they do not take shelter of your safe lotus feet, they are full of such anxieties. Purport. One may question how one can always think of the Lord in regard to his name, fame, quality, etc., if one is embarrassed by such thoughts of family affairs. Everyone in the material world is full of thoughts about how to maintain his family, how to protect his wealth, and how to keep pace with friends and relatives, etc. Thus, he is always in fear and lamentation, trying to keep up with the status quo. In answer to this question, this verse spoken by Brahma is very appropriate. A pure devotee of the Lord never thinks of himself as the proprietor of his home. He surrenders everything unto the supreme control of the Lord, and thus he has no fear for maintaining his family or protecting the interest of his family. Because of this surrender, he no longer has any attraction for wealth. Even if there is attraction for wealth, it is not for sense enjoyment, but for the service of the Lord. A pure devotee may be attracted by accumulating wealth just like an ordinary man. But the difference is that a devotee acquires money for the service of the Lord, whereas the ordinary man acquires the money for his sense enjoyment. Thus, the acquisition of wealth by a devotee is not a source of anxieties, as is the case for a worldly man. And because a pure devotee accepts everything in the sense of serving the Lord, the poisonous teeth of accumulation of wealth are extracted. If a snake has its poison removed and bites a man, there is no fatal effect. Similarly, wealth accumulated in the cause of the Lord has no poisonous teeth, and the effect is not fatal. A pure devotee is never entangled in material worldly affairs, even though he may remain in the world like an ordinary man.
Now Brahmaji prays, O my Lord, people in the world are always embarrassed by the material anxieties. There is a constant material anxiety. What is anxiety? Anxiety to protect the wealth, body, and friends, and therefore the life is completely filled with lamentation and unlawful desires. Prabhupada's choice of words, unlawful desires, and paraphernalia, and thus avariciously they are into the misconception of I and mine, aham mameti. As long as they do not take shelter of the lotus feet, they are full of such anxiety. Bhayam dvitiya abhiniveta syat. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that one may question how to think of the Supreme Lord if one is constantly in the anxiety. What kind of anxiety? People have huge types of anxiety. Anxiety to maintain the family. With every passing day, there is such kind of statements are being passed on. Narayan Murthy said that, make the working week as 70 hours per week. Other fellow came, he said that no, 70 is less. You people should work 80 hours per week. Mind you, 80 hours means 80 divided by 5. These people want to work 16 hours a day. And then, how then LNT can be behind. That fellow came and said, no, one should actually work 90 hours a day. 90 hours a day for 5 days, 90 hours work week. That means 18 hours per day for 5 days a week. So there is always a tension of how to maintain the family. And mind you, higher you go in the ladder, the tension is much greater. Now currently the entire IT industry is struggling with this. They feel that somebody becomes very senior in the position, somebody comes in the managerial role, his salary becomes some 30-35 lakh rupees, 40 lakh rupees, and he also ages away. His age is 40-45 kind of a thing, 40-45s, and you have a new man who is ready to do all these things at very low salary like 15 lakhs, 18 lakhs uh, per annum. He can do all the work, greater the work with more vigor, and you don't need so much of experience. Just 2-3 years of experience is enough. You don't need a person with 25 years of experience and literally aging with the body, unable to keep up with the pace, has so many other responsibilities. So the material world is always this kind of anxiety will be there, right? So there is anxiety about how to maintain the family, how to protect one's wealth, market is falling, how to protect the wealth, and keep pace with the friends and relatives. Many times, some very close relative may just boom, he'll just make such huge money in very short time. He will be, going to Antarctica, Europe, this, that, and he will be feeling, oh my God, मैं बहुत पीछे रह गया in life. So one may question, Prabhupada writes here, when one is filled with such different anxieties, how to think of the lotus feet of the Lord? And thus one will always remain in fear and lamentation with the question of how to keep up the status quo. A pure devotee of the Lord has a very simple answer to this. What is the answer? He never thinks himself as the proprietor of what he has. And therefore, you may seeing this, devotees write this ICO. What is ICO? They will write in the paper, they will write on the book. I used to wonder, what is ICO? Then realize, in care of. So, devotee of the Lord, he doesn't think that this belongs to me, but the devotee of the Lord thinks that this is in care of me. Thus, he surrenders everything under to the supreme control, and thus is completely free from the anxieties of the maintenance. It is not that he is not hardworking. The devotee of the Lord is extremely hardworking. Prabhupada says, a devotee will be attracted to accumulating money and may look like ordinary man, but the purpose of such accumulation of the money is to facilitate devotional service of oneself and the family more than the sense enjoyment. In the mood of I am the controller, I am the proprietor, I am the enjoyer. And that's why Arjuna's one name is Dhananjay, right? One may say, Are Dhana and Arjuna? Yeah, Arjuna was always on the quest of acquiring more and more money so that he can get that Dhana, hand it over to his elder brother Yudhishthir Maharaj, and who was always performing many sacrifices so that they can glorify the Supreme Lord. Call Krishna from Dwaraka to Hastinapur, and Krishna was practically in Hastinapur most of the time. Thus, the acquisition of the wealth by a devotee is not a source of anxiety, but facilitation of devotional service. And the poisonous tooth of that wealth is taken away. What is that poisonous teeth? Poisonous teeth is enjoying mentality, is taken away, and therefore there are no fatal effects of such a wealth accumulation. And this is how a devotee is never entangled in the material worldly affairs. Although he may look ordinary, he remains Jivana Mukta Sa Uchyate. Such a devotee is called as Jivana Mukta, according to Rupa Goswami. Text 7. दैवेन ते हतधिया भवत प्रसंगात् सर्वाशुभ उपशमनात् विमुखेन्द्रियाये कुर्वन्ति कामसुख लेशलवायदीनां लोभाभिभूत मनसा अकुशला शश्वत्.
Translation. O my Lord, persons who are bereft of all auspicious performance of chanting and hearing about your transcendental activities are certainly unfortunate and are also bereft of good sense. They engage in inauspicious activities, enjoying sense gratification for a very little while. Purport. The next question is why people are against such auspicious activities as chanting and hearing the glories and pastimes of the Lord, which can bring total freedom from the cares and anxieties of material existence. The only answer to this question is that they are unfortunate because of supernatural control due to their offensive activities performed simply for the sake of sense gratification. The Lord's pure devotees, however, take compassion upon such unfortunate persons and, in a missionary spirit, try to persuade them into the line of devotional service. Only by the grace of pure devotees can such unfortunate men be elevated to the position of transcendental service. Hare Krishna.
Further, Brahmaji says, by the way, we are in the second section, text 6 to 10. This is the second section of this chapter. Predicament of the conditioned soul. And here Brahmaji is now saying, O my Lord, Daivena te hatadhiyo bhavata prasangat. What is prasanga? Prasanga means the transcendental topics of the Lord. This word is again going to come very beautifully. Tesham, there is a beautiful verse by Kapila Muni. Satam prasangat mamavirya samvido. So prasangat, we'll remember there. Satam prasangat mamavirya samvido. They are bereft of the all auspicious performance of Shravanam and Kirtanam. And thus they remain unfortunate, bereft of a good sense. They engage in inauspicious activities, trying to enjoy sense gratification for a very little while here and there. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the next question is, why people are against such auspicious activities of Shravanam and Kirtanam when they have such tremendous effect on a living entity? The effect of Shravanam and Kirtanam is phenomenal, right? It is like Mahat Punya. If one is looking from a Punya perspective also, which is not a Punya, it is transcendental. But there are many devotees who go to astrologer and they say that if I look your chart, if I look your hand also, your life is to be completely different. But because you are a devotee of the Lord, your life has taken a completely different, very, very positive turn in your life. And that's why Siddhanta Saraswati, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, who was very, very great acclaimed astrologer, he himself wrote various commentaries on Surya Siddhanta, right? He gave up astrology and he said that it's very difficult to predict, the future of a devotee, because devotees, they are guided by the Supreme Lord who rules, what to speak of planets, but the universes. So, if devotional service, especially Shravanam and Kirtanam, is so auspicious, why still people don't take? Only answer Prabhupada says is that they are unfortunate. And because of the offensive activities they have performed for the sake of sense gratification, they are naturally vimukha, bahirmukha. They have faced away from the Supreme Lord. This is the question even Kulashekara is asking. Kulashekara says this. आश्चर्यमेतद्धि मनुष्यलोके सुधां परित्यज्य विषं पिबन्ति नामानि नारायणगोचराणि त्यक्त्वा अन्यवाचा कुहका पठन्ति. Kulashekar Maharaj says, Ascharyametati. Look at the great Ascharya. What is the Ascharya? Sudham parityajya visham pibanti. People will give up the nectar of the holy name of Shravanam and Kirtanam and visham pibanti and will drink the poison willingly. And it is not about outsiders, even within ourselves also. Within half an hour of reading Bhagavatam, we become so tired. I'm talking about myself. But it goes to reading newspaper, reading Twitter, this, that, hours and hours one can be submerged. Somebody has to remind that, be aware of your time. Sudham parityajya visham pibanti. So, Prabhupada says, but the only remedy is that compassion of the devotees. In the missionary spirit, they try to persuade these people so that they come on the path of devotional service and they can be engaged in the transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord. And therefore, it is a duty of a devotee to somehow or other hand over Krishna to people, somehow or other get people's attention to Krishna, somehow or other insert Krishna in people's life in a very pleasing, not in a very dogmatic or, superior than thou kind of a syndrome, but in a very, very pleasing, graceful way. One should try to insert Krishna in people's life. And that is what the missionary spirit of a devotee is. Text 8. Kshutra tridhatubhir imam suruddhamana शीतोष्णवात वर्षैरितरत् इतरात् कामाग्निना अच्युतरुषा सद्दुर्भिरेण संपश्चतो मन उरुक्राम सिदति मे. Translation.
O great actor, my lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion, and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable anger. I take pity on them, and I am very much aggrieved for them. Purport: a pure devotee of the Lord, like Brahma and persons in his disciplic succession, are always unhappy to see the perplexities of conditioned souls who are suffering the onslaught of the threefold miseries which pertain to the body and mind, to the disturbances of material nature, and to many other such material disadvantages. Not knowing adequate measures of the relieving such difficulties, suffering persons sometimes pose themselves as leaders of the people, and the unfortunate followers are put into further disadvantages under such so-called leadership. This is like a blind man's leading another blind man to fall into a ditch. Therefore, unless the devotees of the Lord take pity on them and teach them the right path, their lives are hopeless failures. The devotees of the Lord who voluntarily take responsibility of raising the foolish materialistic sense enjoyers as are as confidential to the Lord as Lord Brahma. Hare Krishna.
Now Brahmaji says, O great actor, O Supreme Lord, these living entities, who are these living entities? All of us. Brahmaji is taking compassion on us, we also included, right? They are always perplexed by Adhyatmika, Adhidaivika, and Adhibhautika miseries. I take pity on them and I am very much aggrieved for them. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, a pure devotee of the Lord or those in the disciplic succession. Somebody may say, oh, I'm not a pure devotee. No, but we are in the disciplic succession, right? So the pure devotees and their disciplic succession are always unhappy to see perplexity of the common masses of people. Para dukkha dukhi, especially the threefold miseries. And at times, such miserable people, they are followed by another leader who is also blind to the activities of self-realization. And andhayatande rupagiyamanat. They will be, all of them are prepared along with the blind leader and the blind follower, prepared to fall in the ditch. However, a devotee of the Lord should voluntarily take the responsibility of raising the foolish materialistic people and turn them towards Shravanam Kirtanam of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, this is how the miseries of the Jiva and a devotee will take voluntary responsibility towards elevating people in general and turn their attention from Maya towards Supreme Lord Krishna. Text 9. यावत् पृथक् तमिदमात्मैन्द्रियार्थ मायाबलं भगवतो जनैष पश्येत् तावन्न संस्मृतिरसौ प्रतिसंक्रमेत व्यर्थापि निवहं वहन्ति क्रियार्था. Translation.
O my Lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet, as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries, being influenced by your external energy. Purport. The whole trouble of the living entity in material existence is that he has an independent conception of life. He is always dependent on the rules of the Supreme Lord in both the conditioned and liberated states. But by the influence of the external energy, the conditioned soul thinks himself independent of the supremacy of the personality of Godhead. His constitutional position is to dottle himself with the desire of the Supreme Will. But as long as he does not do so, he is sure to drag on in the shackles of material bondage. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 2.55, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. He has to give up all sorts of plans manufactured by mental concoction. The living entity has to dottle himself with the supreme will that will help him to get out of the entanglement of material existence.
Further, Brahmaji says, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. We have seen this paropi, manude, anartham, that the living entity is paropi, and all that is happening to the body, and as such, because of the misidentification of the soul with the body, the living entity is suffering far more than actual the suffering is there. Yet, as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as the means of sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of the material miseries, being influenced by the Maya of the Supreme Lord. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that the whole trouble of the living entity is that he has the independent conception of the life. Right? He want independently of the Lord. He wants to enjoy independently. But the reality is that he's always dependent, not only in the conditioned state, but also in the liberated state. We have seen the example that one is always following the rules. Either in the state or in the jail, one will be always following the rules. If one doesn't follow the state rule, one will be sent to the jail and will be following the rules in a very, very stringent way. But there is an influence of the material energy which makes him think that he is the independent Supreme Lord and thus rebel against the Lord. But as soon as the living entity realizes his constitutional position and falls in sync with the supreme will, or the fish takes shelter of the of the ocean, then all his miseries can be vanished at once. And this is how Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Prajhati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyatmana tushtaha sita pradyastadochyate. O Parth, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind is thus purified, finds satisfaction in the process of devotional service, Shravanam and Kirtanam, then he will become Sthita Pragyaha. So this is how Brahmaji is very beautifully praying to the Supreme Lord. So there is one question. Okay. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Jai.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah.